Chosen One, the divine hammer of justice has just shattered every illegal file, every corrupt surveillance operation, and every criminal conspiracy that dared to violate your sacred privacy. God saw every violation, documented every crime, and unleashed a supernatural vengeance that obliterated their entire operation while exposing every conspirator to the world. Their illegal investigation into your background did more than fail, it became the very evidence that destroyed them, proving that no earthly power can stand against someone chosen by the Almighty. The heavens opened, and divine justice struck with the force of cosmic lightning. Psychology can describe what happens when someone operates beyond ordinary human frequencies, how dark forces mobilize to contain that light. But science cannot explain the supernatural protection that surrounds the truly chosen. As you hear these words, classified files are being shredded and surveillance equipment is mysteriously failing. The criminal network that violated your privacy is collapsing under the weight of divine intervention. The invisible war waged against your spirit was never random persecution. It was confirmation that you carry something so powerful it threatened systems built to keep humanity small. Their plan was elaborate. Multiple agencies assembled specialized teams, created new classification levels, and developed surveillance protocols specifically to monitor you. Your case became their most expensive operation because standard procedures kept failing when applied to your life. There was no earthly explanation for your track record. Your victories arrived with supernatural consistency. Your timing was prophetically perfect, and your ability to navigate impossible situations looked less like skill and more like direct communion with cosmic intelligence. The deeper they dug, the clearer it became that they weren't investigating an ordinary person. They were bumping up against a force that operated by laws they couldn't comprehend. Their most sophisticated analysis tools returned results that shattered algorithms. What they found read like science fiction. Major breakthroughs in your life coincided with unexplained electromagnetic disturbances. Security cameras glitched at crucial moments, and devices planted near you failed without explanation. Satellite surveillance lost track of your location during critical meetings, and even human assets left your presence unable to recall crucial details. You existed inside a zone of divine interference that rendered conventional espionage useless. Their investigations uncovered something more unsettling. Your decision-making seemed influenced by information sources beyond their ability to monitor or intercept. You made choices that looked counterintuitive, but always proved correct. Your timing suggested access to knowledge they could not predict. Strategically, you moved at levels their psychological models could not map. Every chosen one carries an invisible target, and you have felt that weight your whole life, the magnetism that draws admirers and enemies alike, the people who study you too closely, ask questions too probing, or appear in your orbit at moments too convenient per coincidence. You have been sensing the truth all along. Now the evidence is catching up. The pretenders are unmasked, and the protection around you has been revealed. What they intended as containment has become the very mechanism of their undoing, and through that unraveling your true nature shines brighter than ever. Your success is not merely a personal victory, it's a direct threat to systems built to keep humanity small, confused, and dependent. This wasn't a targeted probe by a single agency. It began the moment multiple institutions started receiving the same alarming reports about someone whose influence expanded exponentially without following any recognizable pattern. Corporate intelligence teams noticed your business alliances defied market logic. Government analysts flagged your social networks as statistically impossible. Academic researchers found your achievements broke decades-old predictive models. Quiet panic spread through boardrooms where powerful people realized their usual levers of control had no effect on you. Financial institutions couldn't explain how your ventures consistently succeeded when every algorithm predicted failure. Political operatives couldn't account for how your voice shifted public conversation without conventional media channels. Social scientists couldn't fit your impact into any existing framework for measuring influence. The surveillance operation assembled to monitor you used resources normally reserved for threats to national security. Specialized teams were pulled together from multiple agencies, cryptographers trying to decode subtle patterns in your communications, behavioral analysts mapping your movements, and financial investigators tracing every transaction for illicit funding. They sought not just records, they wanted the architecture of your influence itself. What they found defied their instruments. Your network included connections that should never have intersected with someone of your background. Opportunities arrived through chains of events so improbable that probability experts refused to run the numbers. Threats dissolved in coincidences, statisticians labeled mathematically impossible. Breakthroughs you achieved, limits you shattered, and problems you solved sent shockwaves through invisible hierarchies that rely on scarcity to maintain control. Your natural authority exposed the artificial scaffolding of their power. Their investigation grew surgical and obsessive. They tried to map your entire influence ecosystem, decode your decision-making patterns, and locate the source of what they called your metaphysical advantage. Standard surveillance produced only fragmented data. Psychological profiles returned inconclusive. Financial audits turned up nothing illicit, yet recorded outcomes that could not be explained. You operated with access to information streams they couldn't identify, resources they couldn't trace, and timing that suggested for knowledge of events that had not yet occurred. As their files expanded, so did their unease. Your pattern recognition was beyond their models. Your strategic thinking moved through dimensions their analyses couldn't reach. You read situations and people with a precision that implied access to intelligence they could neither monitor nor intercept. You were no longer simply successful. You were operating with something that looked to them like supernatural intelligence. That realization made you the most dangerous person they had ever encountered. The more they learned, the clearer it became. Whatever connects you is something they cannot control, monitor, or comprehend. Their investigation wasn't merely failing, it was exposing the limitations of their power and revealing forces that existed entirely outside their jurisdiction. While outside agencies were building exhaustive cases against you, a far more dangerous betrayal was unfolding inside your inner circle. Someone you trusted without question, someone who shared your table, celebrated your victories, and offered counsel in your weakest hours, was quietly documenting everything you revealed. This was not a slip of conscience or a momentary lapse. It was calculated espionage fueled by an envy so corrosive it became their reason. Posing as your most loyal ally, they methodically assembled a psychological blueprint of your vulnerabilities, not simply to expose you but to reverse engineer your formula for success, so they could either replicate it or obliterate it. Every interaction with them became intelligence gathering. Every favor carried hidden surveillance. They catalogued your reactions, mapped your emotional patterns, inventoried your relationships, all while wearing the comfortable mask of friendship. In their delusion, they convinced themselves they were performing a public service, revealing the truth about the person the world had misunderstood. But in reality, they had positioned themselves as an enemy of the very divine force that chose you. Each whisper, each violated confidence, each act of deception was being recorded by intelligence networks they could not imagine. They believed they were collecting evidence against you when in truth, they were unwittingly building the case that would destroy them. What followed was not merely intervention, it was a masterclass in multidimensional warfare, executed by an intelligence that moves across past, present, and future simultaneously. While your enemies played checkered with their schemes, a divine chess match had been unfolding for millennia, every move anticipated, every ploy redirected. As they mounted surveillance on you, higher intelligence mirrored their actions, tracking them with technologies that transcend physical reality. Meetings they thought private were observed by networks beyond human perception. Communications they considered encrypted were intercepted by systems that existed outside conventional space and time. Their most secure facilities were penetrated by forces that required no physical access. Their cryptography was unraveled by an intelligence that understood the mathematics beneath it. Their plans were known before completion because this counterintelligence existed simultaneously in multiple timelines. Their own files, the documents they believed would convict you, were transformed into the proof of their guilt. Notes, surveillance logs, and footage were mysteriously recontextualized to reveal the conspirators' crimes rather than the evidence they intended to present. Recordings captured confessions instead of manufactured allegations. The reality they had tried to construct around you was being rewritten to reflect their undoing, while elevating you to new levels of authority and influence. Every resource allocated to your persecution was quietly redirected to serve your ultimate purpose. God did more than defend you. He repurposed their entire operation into a precision instrument aimed straight at their hearts. Secret meetings were preserved as evidence, private messages became indictments, and the very plans they built to destroy you became the materials of their own downfall. All the while, they never realized they were being manipulated. Every move they made had already been anticipated and rerouted toward a single outcome: their complete destruction and your inevitable vindication. Every strategy they crafted was quietly being turned against them. Every piece of so-called evidence they thought proved your guilt was, by divine design, rewritten into proof of their own criminality. Detailed logs of your conversations became records of illegal surveillance and privacy violations. Photographs they took of your papers were reclassified as evidence of corporate espionage. Secret recordings of private discussions flipped into damning proof of unlawful monitoring. What they assembled to destroy you, files, footage, timelines, was transformed into an airtight case that exposed their crimes instead. While they exhausted themselves scheming, God was simultaneously positioning your allies, fortifying your protection, and preparing your elevation. As they poured resources into tearing you down, those very efforts accelerated your ascension to influence and authority that would have otherwise taken years to build. The investigation meant to ruin your name produced a public record of supernatural protection that would inspire millions. The cameras meant to catch you off guard instead revealed a strength no algorithm could explain. The betrayals intended to isolate you instead signaled your authenticity and drew true allies closer. Their multi-million-dollar operation ended up functioning as the most expensive publicity campaign money could buy for your divine calling. Classified reports that catalogued your uncanny success became testimonies to active divine favor. Their meticulous documentation of your impossible wins read like proof that something greater was at work on your behalf. You already sensed the system was rigged. Now the rigging was visible, but it had been rigged against them, not you. Then the moment of divine justice hit like a tsunami, sudden, overwhelming, and irreversible. One morning, they were confident, certain they had the ammunition to annihilate everything you built. By evening, their entire network lay exposed. Reputations crumbled, and every authority who'd lent their credibility to the scheme scrambled to distance themselves from the wreckage. Their collapse began the moment their own surveillance arrays started producing evidence of illegal acts. Encrypted channels that had felt secure were mysteriously decrypted and leaked. Secret meeting places were raided after anonymous tips arrived with pinpoint accuracy. The internal betrayer who had been assembling a dossier to humiliate you prepared what they believed would be their crowning victory: presentations, witnesses, a narrative to justify years of resentment. Instead, the stage they'd set became their public confession: slide decks, timelines, and recorded statements that revealed conspiracy rather than culpability. In the end, every material they intended to use against you became the instruments of their ruin. The more they tried to manufacture your downfall, the clearer it became to the world that what they were really defending was a corrupt system, one now exposed and collapsing. Meanwhile, you rose. Their plan backfired so completely that the defeat of your enemies became the gateway to your vindication and the beginning of a new season of influence you were always meant to hold. The evidence they planned to use against you unraveled under scrutiny, fabricated, dode, and illegally obtained. Witnesses they called to validate their narrative instead exposed their own participation in the surveillance conspiracy, turning what should have been a moment of triumph into utter destruction. The files intended to convict you instead painted a damning portrait of obsessive harassment, unlawful monitoring, and coordinated criminal activity that even seasoned investigators found staggering. Your enemies had documented their own crimes with such obsessive detail that prosecutors later called their packet one of the most complete evidence sets they'd ever seen. Even more remarkable was the discovery that the things they believed they'd uncovered about you were, in reality, the fingerprints of divine protection. Instruments meant to capture your misdeeds recorded unexplained phenomena. Logs meant to prove your guilt became documentation of supernatural intervention. In every attempt to manufacture your downfall, they inadvertently assembled scientific proof of active divine favor in your life. God flipped the narrative so thoroughly that reality itself seemed to reconfigure around their undoing. Every smear became a confession. Every planted document became a testament to their malfeasance, and their carefully constructed facade collapsed in real time. The betrayal that had been intended to isolate you instead catalyzed their prosecution. The betrayer's journals and logs were entered as evidence against them. Secret audio and video surfaced as proof of wiretapping and illegal surveillance. Financial trails revealed payments that supported conspiracy charges. What had been assembled as a dossier to humiliate you became the foundation for criminal indictments and, ultimately, imprisonment. Their scheme didn't merely fail, it rebounded with such force that everyone involved was forced to confront who the true threat had been all along. Beyond the legal fallout, a deeper truth crystallized. The sophistication of the attack was not evidence of your weakness, but of your extraordinary power. That advanced networks, analysts and institutions, united specifically to study and neutralize you, only validated how disruptive your presence was to the old order. Surviving fragments of their reports showed analysts classifying you as an impossible individual, someone whose success patterns defied statistical models, whose business outcomes ignored conventional market logic, and whose influence operated outside the frameworks corporate intelligence and government research were built to understand. The truth stood clear in the wreckage of their collapse. Their assault had proved beyond doubt the very thing they had tried to deny, that you were chosen, protected, and far more consequential than they ever imagined. Academic researchers who study influence patterns concluded that your impact obeyed laws conventional science had not yet discovered. Slowly, you began to recognize a pattern that had always been present in your life, but remained hidden beneath the surface of ordinary experience. Every seemingly impossible situation you'd navigated, every moment of impeccable timing, every inexplicable breakthrough, these were not random gifts or luck. They were divine intelligence operating through you at levels most people never access. In the process of trying to explain you, the investigators accidentally mapped aspects of your nature even you had not fully comprehended. You do not operate by the same rules as ordinary people. Your intuition is more than sound judgment. It's a channel to divine intelligence. Your timing is not mere fortune, it is prophetically precise. Your ability to read people and situations is not only skillful, it is supernatural discernment. Your success is not only the product of effort, it is destiny manifesting through focused intention. Their instruments recorded phenomena that violated familiar laws. Security cameras captured unexplained light anomalies at critical moments. Audio devices picked up frequencies that had no place in ordinary recordings when you made pivotal decisions, and environmental sensors registered electromagnetic disturbances coinciding with your breakthroughs. What began as an effort to find natural explanations for your results instead produced the most comprehensive documentation of divine intervention in modern memory. Attempts to debunk your calling became irrefutable proof of your chosen status. That revelation brought exhilaration and heavy responsibility in equal measure. If God had invested this level of protection and development in you, then your life was never meant to be merely a personal success story. It was meant to reshape generations. You were not blessed simply to enjoy blessings. You were blessed to become a transformational force, a living demonstration that reality could be rewritten. Once you understood this, the reason such sophisticated forces had mobilized against you was clear. You were proof that the systems built to control humanity were obsolete. While your enemies conspired in the shadows, God was strategically placing allies throughout every sphere of your influence. These were not random contacts or convenient favors. They were divine agents prepared to amplify your mission. Some had walked beside you for years in ordinary roles, waiting for their moment to activate. Others appeared suddenly with perfect timing, bringing precisely the skills, resources, or connections required for your next quantum leap. Each one immediately recognized your appointment and committed to your success. Together they formed a prophetic infrastructure, a support ecosystem that both advanced your goals and shielded your vision from further sabotage. Its power lay not only in practical aid, but in divine architecture. Every person carried a piece of the blueprint that would enable you to step fully into the next dimension of your assignment. You didn't recruit these people through ordinary networking or strategy. They were directed to you by the same cosmic intelligence that dismantled your enemies. Their loyalty wasn't transactional or based on what you could give them. It was rooted in a clear recognition of what God was accomplishing through your life. Throughout this spiritual conflict, you have been surrounded by forces most people cannot perceive. Angels assigned to your protection, ancestral spirits aligned with your purpose, and divine guides clearing your path and fighting battles on planes beyond physical sight. You felt their presence in moments that looked like coincidence, but were actually precise signals, repeating numbers that followed you, patterns arriving at exactly the right moment, intuitive nudges that diverted you from danger and steered you toward opportunity. These were communication protocols from an intelligence network operating on frequencies few can access. Every fortunate turn, every sudden insight, every narrowly avoided disaster was the product of supernatural coordination. When crucial information arrived just in time, when doors previously closed opened, or when you met the exact person who accelerated your next step, invisible guardians were orchestrating those outcomes. This spiritual army worked tirelessly to neutralize threats before they manifested and to open channels for your advancement, so effectively that even the most advanced surveillance tools could not penetrate the protective field around your life. The betrayer who had worn the mask of loyalty while quietly undermining you was about to be exposed by divine revelation. Their carefully concealed communications with your investigators were unearthed. Years of encrypted messages that traced an obsession with your destruction. They had compiled psychological doses on your family, friends, and colleagues, hunting for vulnerabilities to exploit. They scoured past relationships for witnesses who might lend credibility to their lies. But God, who reads motivations and records intentions, had been assembling an indestructible case against them. Every choice to deceive, every smile that hid malice, every rumor planted in your name had been documented with precision by intelligence systems they could neither evade nor corrupt. The unmasking would not be subtle. It would be a decisive exposure that left no room for denial. Their polished public persona would shatter instantly, revealing the jealous, manipulative character they'd hidden beneath layers of practiced performance. Those who trusted them would finally see how thoroughly they'd been deceived, and the betrayal would stand exposed for all to witness. Their secret financial records told the story plainly, regular payments traced back to your enemies, a steady stream of compensation that turned friendship into a transaction. Bank statements matched the timing of major intelligence deliveries about your life. They had literally sold your trust for money. On their devices were thousands of photographs of private documents, recorded conversations, and meticulous notes cataloging your emotional responses. Every interaction converted into an intelligence-gathering operation and was documented with the precision of a trained spy. But this exposure served a purpose beyond punishment. It was meant to demonstrate the futility of opposing someone chosen by God. Their spectacular downfall became a warning to anyone tempted by treachery. Divine protection around you was not merely defensive, it actively dismantled those who positioned themselves as your enemies. The betrayer's network unraveled too. Casual friends turned out to be informants. Social gatherings you'd hosted were revealed as surveillance setups, and even attempts to recruit members of your own family were documented. They had offered money to turn your loved ones against you, corrupting the most sacred bonds in pursuit of their agenda. The most disturbing discovery lay in their private journals, pages filled with obsession, envy, and fantasies of your ruin. Their jealousy had metastasized into a pathology. They lost themselves in the single mission of monitoring and undermining your success. As the dust settled on that spiritual battlefield, a larger truth emerged. The intensity of the attack confirmed the significance of your assignment. Every trial, every betrayal, every victory had been part of a divine curriculum preparing you to demonstrate what alignment with God could accomplish. What the betrayer intended as your destruction instead sharpened your discernment. The evidence that exposed their scheme also taught you to distinguish genuine allies from envious bystanders, so that going forward your inner circle would be built on spiritual alignment rather than convenience. More than vindication, their collapse furnished irrefutable proof that divine favor can outmatch any earthly conspiracy, and that your life was being readied to inspire others who feared opposition but felt called to extraordinary purpose. A massive spiritual confrontation is coming, one that will dwarf everything you faced so far. This is not another routine test of resolve, it is the final examination that will prove whether you are ready to step into the fullest expression of your divine assignment. The opposition will be smarter, the stakes higher, and the pressure more intense than anything you have previously navigated. Every earlier battle was training, every victory built the spiritual muscle you now need, and every attack you survived sharpened the supernatural discernment that will guide you through this ultimate trial. You are not entering the storm as the person who first noticed unusual attention. You enter it forged by fire, transformed into an unstoppable force. God has already calculated variables, anticipated enemy strategies, and positioned countermeasures that will turn their most powerful weapons back on them. The same divine intelligence that dismantled their investigation network will choreograph your complete victory in the days ahead. Attacking someone chosen by God does not simply guarantee failure for the aggressors, it accelerates their collapse while amplifying your authority to heights that would otherwise have taken decades to reach. What once threatened to expose your vulnerability revealed instead the depth of your protection. The betrayal that broke your heart became the foundation of discernment that will guard you forever. The adversaries who once seemed invincible are now cautionary tales, proof that opposing divine will is futile. Their surveillance webs lie in ruins, their secret schemes have become evidence of corruption, and their alliances have unraveled under the weight of their own treachery. In trying to target your weaknesses, they documented your strengths in ways that will inspire generations of chosen ones who need to see that God's protection is real and unstoppable. You now walk in the full awareness of your cosmic significance. The sensitivity that once alerted you to threats is now tuned to opportunity. The intelligence that warned you of danger now guides you toward destiny. The protection that kept you safe now empowers you to shield others who are only beginning to recognize their calling. Your story has become both a weapon against fear and a foundation for faith. Witnesses to your journey will be emboldened to step boldly into their own extraordinary assignments. Believers will be reassured that the same protection awaits anyone who aligns with divine purpose. The campaign against you is finished. The betrayers are exposed. The enemies are defeated. Allies stand strategically placed. Purpose is unveiled, and power is activated. You are no longer merely observed. You are commissioned. You are not a target. You are a guided instrument aimed at dismantling everything that has kept humanity small and afraid. Being chosen does not mean avoiding opposition. It means recognizing that opposition is not meant to destroy you. It serves your purpose. Being chosen does not guarantee a life of ease, but a life that reveals the limitless power of surrendering fully to God's will. What your enemies designed for your downfall has become the very platform for your elevation. The investigation meant to shame you has ended, and in its place a new season of victory and dominion has begun, authored by the same God who overturned their schemes. You are chosen, you are protected, you are victorious, you are unstoppable. The final battle will not break you, it will reveal you. That's all for today. Heavenly Father, I pray for the growth of my faith. Teach me to trust you, even when I cannot see the evidence. Help me rest in the assurance of your constant presence, knowing that you have only good plans for me, plans of prosperity and hope. Thank you, gracious and eternal Father, for always hearing my voice. I lift this prayer to you in the name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you, Jesus, for your unfailing love and abundant provision. I am deeply grateful for your presence in my life and for the blessings you continue to pour out. If this message touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share it with others who may need encouragement. Leave a comment below about your own journey and how you are preparing for your breakthrough. And if you would like to support our mission, please